Chapter 1. The Koi and the Psychic. The sun was setting over the tranquil village of Hanamura, casting a warm golden light across the old temple garden. For years, this place had been a sanctuary for those seeking peace. The gentle murmur of the koi pond, the soft rustling of bamboo, and the occasional breeze through the cherry blossoms made it a haven of serenity. Akio, a young Pokemon trainer, sat by the edge of the pond, his thoughts heavy with the weight of recent failures. He had come to the garden to clear his mind, but even here, among the peaceful koi, his thoughts were restless. His last few battles had been disasters, his Pokemon fatigued, and his confidence shattered. Despite all the training, all the preparation, Akio felt as if something was missing within him. As he stared into the pond, watching the koi swim gracefully beneath the surface, a strange feeling washed over him. The reflection of the fish seemed to ripple in ways that defied the water's current, moving as if guided by something unseen. And then the surface of the pond shimmered, not from the wind, but from an energy Akio could feel in his very bones. Suddenly, from the far end of the garden, a figure appeared, emerging from the shadows like a dream. Gardevoir. Her form was ethereal, almost glowing as she moved toward him, her eyes shimmering with an otherworldly light. Akio had heard of Gardevoir, the guardian of this ancient garden. The villagers spoke of her in whispers, claiming she only appeared to those in deep need of guidance. As she approached, he realized that her presence here was no coincidence. She floated gracefully, her gown billowing as if caught by an invisible breeze, and her voice echoed in Akio's mind, soft and soothing. "Why do you seek peace, young one, when your heart is so filled with doubt?" Akio blinked, startled by her sudden appearance, but more so by her ability to speak directly into his thoughts. He took a deep breath, collecting himself before responding. I've lost my way. No matter how hard I try, I can't seem to win battles or connect with my Pokemon the way I should. I've come here to find clarity." Gardevoir tilted her head slightly, her gaze piercing yet compassionate. "Clarity does not come from stillness alone. To understand yourself, you must first learn to understand the balance within." Chapter 2. Meditation of the Mind. For the next several days, Akio returned to the garden, not to train his Pokemon in battle, but to learn a new kind of discipline. Gardevoir guided him through mental exercises, teaching him to quiet his racing thoughts and focus on the energies around him. Together, they sat by the koi pond, but instead of focusing on the outside world, Gardevoir instructed him to look inward. "Your mind is like this pond," she said telepathically. "When it is still, it reflects the world clearly. But when it is disturbed, it warps everything around it. You must learn to control the ripples." Akio found the exercises difficult at first. His mind was always so active, constantly leaping from one worry to another. But with Gardevoir's help, he began to understand the value of patience and inner calm. His bond with his Pokemon, especially his Galad, began to deepen as he learned to listen not just to their movements in battle, but to their emotions, their fears, and their strengths. One day, Gardevoir led Akio to a secluded part of the garden where a stone meditation circle lay beneath a cherry blossom tree in full bloom. The air was fragrant, and the setting sun painted the sky with hues of orange and pink. "Now that you have begun to understand yourself, we will test your mind against the forces of nature," Gardevoir said, her voice ringing with both encouragement and challenge. Akio closed his eyes as instructed, letting the sounds of the garden surround him. The wind in the trees, the soft trickle of the pond, the distant chirping of birds, it all became a symphony, and Akio felt himself become a part of it. But then he sensed a shift. The peaceful atmosphere grew tense, as if something unnatural was approaching. A shadow passed over him, and when Akio opened his eyes, he saw a dark figure standing at the edge of the garden. A wild Pangoro, its eyes burning with aggression. The Pokemon had wandered into the garden, agitated and dangerous. Akio instinctively reached for his Pokeball, but Gardevoir stopped him with a gentle wave of her hand. "No," she said firmly. "Use your mind, not your might." Akio hesitated, but obeyed. Closing his eyes again, he focused on the energy around him. He could feel the Pangoro's rage, its chaotic, turbulent emotions swirling in the air. It was frightened, lost, and lashing out. Akio reached out with his thoughts, just as Gardevoir had taught him, trying to calm the wild Pokemon. "We mean you no harm," Akio whispered in his mind, his thoughts directed at the Pangoro. "This is a place of peace. You are safe here." To his astonishment, the Pangoro slowed its movements. Its aggression faded, replaced by confusion. Slowly, it turned and lumbered back into the forest, leaving the garden undisturbed. Akio opened his eyes, his heart racing, but filled with a deep sense of accomplishment. "You have done well," Gardevoir said. "The power of the mind is stronger than you realize. With focus and clarity, you can overcome any obstacle." Chapter 3. The Psychic Duel. As the weeks passed, Akio's bond with Gardevoir grew, and his understanding of balance deepened. But just as he began to feel at peace, a new threat emerged. Word spread through the village of an impending attack. A gang of rogue trainers, known for their ruthless tactics, had set their sights on Hanamura and its temple garden. They sought to claim the garden's mystical energies for themselves. The villagers were in a panic, and Akio knew that their peaceful home would not survive a direct assault. Desperate to protect the garden, Akio rushed to Gardevoir. "What can we do?" Akio asked. "They're strong, and they'll stop at nothing to take the garden's power." Gardevoir stood calmly beneath the cherry blossoms, her eyes closing as she seemed to contemplate the situation. When she opened them again, there was a fire in her gaze that Akio had not seen before. "We will protect this place, but not with force," she said. "You have learned to quiet your mind. Now you must learn to control it in the face of chaos." When the rogue trainers arrived, Akio stood in the garden with Gardevoir at his side. The leader of the gang, a sneering trainer named Ren, released a Machamp, its four muscular arms flexing as it prepared to attack. "This is your last chance," Ren called out. "Give us the garden's guardian, or we'll take her by force." Akio stepped forward, his mind steady. "You'll have to get through me first." Ren laughed. "With what? Your weak Pokemon? Let's see what your mind games can do against real power." As Machamp lunged forward, Gardevoir's eyes glowed with psychic energy. Akio didn't need to give any commands. He had learned to trust the bond between them, to act not with words, but with thought. Together, their minds became one, as Gardevoir used Calm Mind, her psychic powers amplifying until the very air around them seemed to hum with energy. Machamp's fists crashed down, but they never made contact. Gardevoir had created a barrier, reflecting the raw physical strength of the attack back at their enemies. Ren's Machamp stumbled, disoriented. Now, Gardevoir's voice echoed in Akio's mind. "Focus your thoughts. We can end this without violence." Akio closed his eyes, reaching out with his mind to Ren and his Machamp. He sent the wave of calm, just as he had with the wild Pangoro. He showed them the peaceful energy of the garden, the harmony that existed between the Pokemon and nature. He showed them what would be lost if they continued their path of destruction. Ren hesitated, his sneer faltering. The aggression in his Machamp faded, and the rogue trainer took a step back. "This isn't over," Ren muttered, recalling his Pokemon and retreating with his gang. As they disappeared into the distance, Akio let out a long breath, his heart pounding in his chest. He had protected the garden, not with brute force, but with the power of his mind, just as Gardevoir had taught him. "You have learned much," Gardevoir said softly. "Balance, peace, and strength come from within. You are ready for the challenges ahead." Akio smiled, feeling a deep sense of pride and purpose. The garden was safe, and so was he, thanks to Gardevoir's guidance. And as the cherry blossoms gently fell around them, Akio knew that he would carry the lessons of the garden with him for the rest of his life.